Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Module 4 of the CSBG Annual Report. For those who do not know me, I am Katie Jowski, NASCASP Research Director. We're excited that you're able to join us for the call this afternoon. We know that you're all very busy, and we appreciate you making time for this webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are on mute. If you'd like to ask questions during this webinar, please use the chat option on the webinar toolbar. The toolbar is located on the right-hand side of your screen. You should see a text box where you can type a question. Please ensure that you're selecting all panelists so that all of our presenters can see your questions. Questions read aloud and answered during the Q&A portions of the webinar. To our schedule, we may not have time for all questions. If that's the case, we will compile your questions into an FAQ following the webinar. Webinars will be recorded and will be posted to the NASCASP website along with all of the PowerPoint slides. It will be presented by Seth Hassett, Director, Division of State Assistance at the Office of Community Services, Director of Training and Technical Assistance from the Community Action Partnership, Court Fuller, Associate, also at the Community Action Partnership, Barbara Mee, Director of the Association of Nationally Certified ROMA Trainers and a consultant NASCASP, and Lauren Cook, CSBG Director. The idea for today's webinar is to discuss Module 4 of the CSBG Annual Report. That is the individual and family level module. We will consider the elements of Module 4. We'll discuss Section A, National Performance Indicators and NPI report form. We'll discuss Section B, which is the list of services, and we'll discuss Section C, the All Characteristics report. We will all discuss targeting and available tools and resources. So before we get started today, I'd like to turn it over to Jarl from the partnership for a welcome. Jarl?
Hello, everyone. This is Jarl Crocker, Director of Training and Technical Assistance at the Community Action Partnership. We just wanted to welcome all of you to today's webinar on the annual report. And thank you on behalf of our CEO, Denise Harlow. And we also wanted to thank both OCS, NASCASP, and ANSERT for putting these webinars together to support our network as we move towards implementation of ROMA Next Generation and the annual report. As always, if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either partnership staff or any of our other national partners on the call for additional support. So thank you all again, and Katie, back to you.
Great, thanks, Jarl. Now I'm going to turn it over to Seth Hassett from OCS. Seth?
Thank you, Katie, and thank you everyone for your participation in this webinar. I'm joined by Jamia Furbush, who is the OCS Program Analyst responsible for Regions 2, 8, and 10 for CSBG. You all know today's webinar is focused on Module 4, the individual and family level indicators, and adaptation of local data systems and the overall volume of the reporting effort. I think this may be the most significant module in your annual report, especially for the local agencies. And CSBG eligible entities won't necessarily have outcomes to report in all domains of Module 4. Generally expected that the action agencies will have some individual, family, and individual outcome to report. So this is an adjustment for us, but I think an important refinement to data collection for CSBG that will benefit us in the long run. I wondered if Jamia wanted to say anything just to welcome you.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. Again, this is Jamia Furbush. I am a CS Program Analyst, and I am responsible for Regions 2, 8, and 10. Those are the states of New Jersey, New York, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. That's in Region 2. Region 8 is Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. and Region 10 is Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. So as the program analyst responsible for those regions, my role, amongst other things, is to review the state CSBG plans and annual reports, and also to work closely with CSBG state managers to address questions and arrange for technical assistance if needed. I am also responsible for the Learning Community Resource Center Technical Assistance Grant and the CSBG Legal Technical Assistance Grant. We are always looking for ways to make sure those grants supporting useful technical assistance related to our performance management framework. So I look forward to working with everyone. I encourage to continue to keep the communication open, and those of you at local agencies continue to share your questions with your state CSBG staff. I'll say that this is a new process for everyone, including OCS, and we're open to feedback, and we are hopeful to be able to respond to your questions as they arise. Thank you.
Yeah, were you going to introduce all the presenters otherwise?
Sorry, not time.
Okay, so with the next slide. For the seven, we are also going to then walk just a little bit of a high-level overview of the performance management framework, just to be in context in terms of where Module 4 fits in and how it contributes to a larger effort to improve performance management for CSBG. So if you go to the next slide, and many of you are familiar with the fact that there are a multi-level performance management framework for CSBG that begins with local organizational standards. That's certainly, I think, the piece of the new framework that's the farthest along in terms of its overall implementation nationwide. This level of the performance management framework is that have instituted state and federal accountability measures. This is looking at all functions that state CSBG offices and federal OCS office do in order for agencies to succeed and for to have successful outcomes. And it's all the functions that we perform. And the results-oriented and management and accountability system, we've had ROMA as part of CSBG for many years, but we are, as part of this whole effort, working to implement ROMA next generation effort, and that's really implemented with all the new data effort and other kinds of guidance and training that we're putting in place. And the CSBG annual report is implementing all this and supporting all of this framework, and it includes updated and refined outcome measures that can to especially for our ROMA cycle. So to the next slide, and just to emphasize again, performance management and performance measurement are directly related to each other, but the way performance measurement becomes meaningful is when it contributes to a performance system and an overall continuous quality improvement effort. Our ROMA Next Generation approach demonstrates a commitment to outcomes and maintains the focus on local solutions for families and communities, and looking to build capacity and for the outcome for outcomes in the long term, and the ability to promote long-term thinking in the CSBG agencies. So next slide. It gives a picture of where we are in the process of implementing the new annual report, and for me know that as in the next couple of slides, there are 4 modules to CSBG. The first part is the administrative module, or Module 1, which is completed by the states. And we've actually had a successful round of submission of the administrative module, so you can see by the check mark for fiscal 16. Only in progress for fiscal year 17. So these are continuing to use the CSBG IS survey for data collection and reporting for that end. And as we move into the next year, we say we are moving to implement modules 2, 3, and 4. So that will be the first full year of implementation of the new annual report, with the report submission from states due March 31st of 2019. So we are in progress in the implementation of the overall annual report and had some success with Module 1, and we know the heavier lift is continued work on Modules 2, 3, and 4. Next slide. It gives a little picture of how all of these pieces fit together. The top is really the community level efforts, the community needs assessment, which is a part of input that is the ongoing strategic plan for the agency, but also contributes to a community action plan, which is the annual picture of what services and strategies are for the community. All from work within a state contributes to a CSBG state plan. Not every detail of a community action plan is included in the state plan, but it is part of the supportive process. And data, we now have linked state plan and the annual report, so there is much more of a feeding us, especially for the state administrative elements, so that we're able to see what was planned and what were the actual outcomes as implemented. Lastly, all of this leads to our ability to report to Congress and ultimately to report to others, and we're hoping to continue to increase public transparency and information in CSBG to show the great work that's being done around the country. Next slide. It's an updated version of the action theory of change. There have been multiple versions of this graphic, and that people have expressed interest in when we will be sort of finalizing. I'll let you know that within OCS, we're going to circulate this version that you're seeing to get clearance in communications office and others. And at that point, when we put out, we'll be considering it final. We know that there are different ways to pick the pieces of this and use it for different types of presentations and information, but we are hoping to finalize the graphic element of that so that we can continue to focus on using the information for training and planning purposes. And Barbara Mooney was going to say a little bit more about the theory of change.
Thanks, Seth, and we're all looking forward to getting the final version so that we can begin to implement this wonderful new tool that really outlines for us the three major goals of community action at the top, and identifies the services and strategies. The interesting thing about this version of the graphic is that this is the connection, the clear connection between the change and the annual report, where domains in the annual report show up here in the theory of change. It also identifies core principles and identifies the full performance management system, which is what Seth was just talking about. And it's here clearly identified in the theory of change. There are the pillars that hold up the community and the community action goals. They're based on the agency capacity. You'll see the agency capacity goal is missing from the national goals, but it's included here in the foundation to show the importance of high-performing community action agencies and other parts of the network as well. So this is a good tool for us to use as we begin to conceptualize the new performance management framework. To be talking about Module 4 of the annual report, But the annual report really is tied quite closely to the theory of change, that you're seeing the pieces of the performance management framework, and you'll be seeing in modules 2, 3, 4, the domains connected to the agency capacity in Module 2, community work in Module 3, and family and individuals in Module 4, which is what we're going to talk about today. I'm turning the program over now for more discussion about the family level indicators.
This is Court Kohler from the Community Action Partnership, and I'll be talking a little bit about kind of annual report offers and just kind of an overview of Module 4 as we start to dig into it. So this annual report offers, looking at being able to tell a more compelling story of the continuum of outcomes that are needed to achieve economic security, individuals and families. So looking at data that's easy to understand and allows some meaningful summary at the national level, like on the previous slide about kind of a continue how it gets all the way up to the congressional reports. And then of it is the set of measures to track the CSBG network's performance with respect to the impact of services provided to individuals and families. So being able to have even better data to help agencies, states, and national partners to improve the evaluation and program performance, therefore helping individuals, families, and communities even better as we kind of go through this ROMA cycle of continuous improvement. And so looking at outcomes, services, and people, these primary components. So individual and family level, ROMA generation connects the outcome services and participants to facilitate this robust analysis. With outcomes, we're looking at those jobs that are obtained, completed education, increased income, secured housing, services. We're looking at those pieces that are provided, about training, the work experience, education, housing, counseling, and the other piece, of course, is the people. So really looking at this unduplicated count of the people served, and all of the participant characteristics within that. So with their income, job status, education level, etc., and kind of how all of these things roll up into each other and making sure there are the services provided and then those outcomes that are achieved. CSBG annual report, these are kind of the main components that are included. So Section A is the individual and family national performance indicators. Section B is the individual and family services. And then Section C is the all characteristics report. So then on the kind of a picture of the crosswalk example that between the Module 4 and the CSBG survey. Throughout the rest of this webinar, you'll see more of these crosswalks, and there's some tools there that NASCASP has as well. Doing a full crosswalk between these two reports that can be helpful in seeing what was included in the CSBG compared to what's at now in Module 4 of the individual and family level. So the CSBG annual report in this Module 4 is organized by domains. And so 7 domains included, as you see here on your screen. And with these, we're looking at being able to track within them, track more accurately, and in the characteristics of these people served within different domains. Within the indicators provide a means to measure achievement of or movement towards the long-term goals. It's looking at documenting the number of people who receive services and the number who achieve outcomes. and provides data for analysis. So answering questions like what change was expected, what ended up happening, how did change compare with the expected change, and how accurate were our projections, and what percent of people served achieved the outcome. And so one important piece here, as we're going to look at the next slide as well, is that we're only asking for people to report indicators that apply to their work. With only the NPIs that are relevant to achieving the goals and outcomes set by our own agency, and it's all based on the local needs and conditions of their community. And so the annual report does not mandate the use of any of the proposed outcome indicators, but it just provides a set of standardized indicators, kind of a menu, based on those that have been proven effective at the family level for many years. So this time, I'll turn it over to Katie to talk more about the indicators.
Great, thank you, Courtney. We're now going to take a deeper look at the individual and family national performance indicators. Screen, you can see the employment indicators. This is the first domain, domain 1. It collects data on outcomes achieved by participants with low income in employment programs. In all of the indicators, there are 5 columns that you'll report in. As you see, this first column sets the number of participants served in programs. In the column, you'll insert total number of people for whom you gave a service to who was attempting to achieve the outcome, regardless of whether or not they obtained that outcome. So the number of participants served. The second column is the target. In the target column, you will enter the number of people who you think will achieve the outcome. In the column is the actual results. At the end of the program period, this is where you'll enter the actual results, the number of people who obtained the actual outcome. The fourth and the fifth columns will auto-populate. The fourth column is the percentage achieving the outcome, and the fifth column is the performance target accuracy. How well did you target? How did you guess? How accurate was your estimate in that indicator? As you can see, in this slide, we've got this red box, and it says expands on NPI 1.1 A, B, and D. So that's crosswalk from the IS report to the annual report. We have this version of the annotated annual report located on our website, and later in this webinar, we will show you where that is located. So these indicators expand on some of our current NPIs. As you can see, we now have the ability to track or to report on the number of unemployed adults who obtained and maintained employment for at least 180 days. So that's a new indicator that's expanding on what we currently have in the IS. Also, the ability to track youth. So this is the education and cognitive development indicators. This is domain 2. This indicators collects data on outcomes obtained by children with low incomes, youth, parents, caregivers, and other adults. Many of these outcomes align directly with Head Start indicators. So if you're running a Head Start program, you'll likely find your outcomes to report here. As you can see, we are expanding on NPI 6.3 and 0.2. Asset building indicators. This is the third domain. This data on participants who achieve outcomes such as increasing the ability to meet basic needs, or increasing assets, or the ability to manage and utilize resources, or improving financial well-being. We have new indicators in this section, and we also have indicators that are expanding on what we currently report on in NPI 1.3. Next slide. The housing indicators. This is the fourth domain. This collects information, or this reports information on who have achieved outcomes in the housing domain, such as accessing emergency housing, obtaining and maintaining stable housing, avoiding foreclosure, avoiding eviction, improving the health and safety of a home. New indicators in this section, and the section also expands on NPIs 6.2, 6.2, and 6.4. So if you're reporting in those sections, you may find some of the outcomes that you're achieving in this particular set of indicators. Behavioral development indicators. This is the fifth domain. This collects data on the number of people who achieve outcomes such as improving physical, mental, and behavioral health, increased household interaction skills, demonstrating the ability to live independently, and increasing recidivism. So there's quite a few new indicators in this section, as well as expanding on what was reported at NPI 6.3. Civic engagement and community involvement. This section is a new section. This is where you can report on activities that perhaps increase leadership skills, improve social networks, enhancing a person's ability to engage in with knowledge and skills in civic activities. Maybe they're working towards some policy changes, and that kind of civic engagement work. All indicators in this section also include the option to use report other. So if you don't see the outcome that you're working towards listed in the previous indicators, you can choose to report in other and write in what you're doing. We really want to know the work that you're doing, even if it's not already listed in the available menu of options. Comes across multiple domains. This is also a new indicator. Reports on the unduplicated count of people who have received one or more outcomes in any of the domains. So if somebody has received one outcome, you can report them here. If somebody's received 3 outcomes in 3 different domains, you report them unduplicated here once here. The uniqueness of this indicator is that it attempts to report on the lives changed. So this is the indicator that really helps us tell the story of community action. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Courtney to talk about the individual and family level services.
Alrighty. And so we just covered the individual and family level NPIs, which was that section A that I mentioned previously of module, and then now we're turning over to the services, which is section B of this module. There's a new list in the annual report, and the services we deliver to individuals and families is what is being tracked in this area. So some feedback that we've received from the network over the years is that some of the outputs and outcomes have been mixed together. And so what this list really works to do is separate out the services and the outcomes so that we better understand and tell the story of what services are being provided by the network to achieve results for the individuals and families. And from talking with the field that some individuals and families are receiving services to achieve outcomes in both Goal 6 previously. So there's some duplication in the reporting. So first area of services, this goes along with the domains mentioned earlier as well as the domains that Katie taught. So this here on your screen, you see the first list of services under employment. And there's 2 different columns. So of course, in the left-hand side, you have the employment services list. And the side is where you report the unduplicated number of the individuals served. The note here is that you're putting in the white boxes, not necessarily, you're not totaling up to each category that's included in the gray box. So for example, you would report on how many people have received vocational training or self-employment skills training. Would not total up all those numbers to equal the number of people that overall receive skills, training, and opportunities for experience. Report out in the white boxes here. And similarly, all the way down the line, as you go through workshops, people have received coaching, job referrals, interactions with employers, and finally, employment supplies. How many people have received, services or giving out employment supplies. So, category services list, or the next domain, is the education and cognitive development services. So, as you can see here, again, pretty well straightforward. But this is, number who are served through Head Start, other early childhood education, K-12 education, and down the list. And then school supplies is actually a new category this time, or new service that you can report out on, because there was a lot of feedback that this was not being captured. So you now capture this. And those up top, as you can see kind of how this crosswalks in the red box, that this is new and it expands on CSBG NPI 6.3 and 1.2. So they know if you're reporting error previously, you can look at what you were reporting, transfer it over, but it is also expanded in this new services list. Okay, next slide. So the building services is the next services list. The portion of this is mostly new, so looking at the financial capability skills training, financial coaching and counseling, first-time homebuyer counseling, and on as well as small business startup and development counseling for classes. And so is new information that you can now report out in the new annual report. And then go on further is the benefit coordination advocacy. So that first piece, the support payments, that crosswalks to the CSBG NPI 1.3b. The rest that are listed are actually new. Those can be things that you can incorporate into your data collection processes if applicable to your agency. And next services, and so this goes through, there's several new ones in this list as well, but then there are a few that crosswalk over to the CSBG IS, either 1 or 6, and so looking at financial capability skills training under housing payment assistance, so a little bit different than the financial coaching and counseling that you saw on the other slide previously. So it separates those out. And then eviction prevention services, that is a new category that can be tracked and reported on now as far as services go. Utility payment assistance, so looking at utility deposits, payments, and utility payments. So they'll kind of crosswalks over to CSBGIS, NPI 1.2 and K, as well as 6.2B and 6.4 G and I. And then the level billing assistance is actually new. Piece there, the housing placement and rapid rehousing. This is a new area of data on services being provided. So at temporary housing placement, transitional housing, and so on. So then in social behavioral development is the next category of services. And you see that those health services, screenings, and assessments that are listed. So you've got immunizations, physical, vision screening, visit payments. And most of these are looking at NPIs that were tracked in the CSBGIS, also expanding them. So there's some expansion done here. Reproductive health services, this is new to the CSBG annual reports, looking at coaching sessions that are provided, fanning classes, contraceptives, things like that, and how many people are served with those services. So the next is the services supporting multiple domains. And so this is actually new for the CSBG annual report. So we're looking at how many clients have been served with case management services, ability determinations, referrals. This is where referrals is captured, as well as transportation services, child care subsidies and payments, centers for elder care, as well as identification documents, so how many services or how many people have been provided services around obtaining birth certificates, things like that. Re-entry services is also included here, immigration support services as well. And then we have the civic engagement and community involvement. This is another new area of tracking or of reporting on these services. So this is looking at voter education and access, the leadership training, tripartite board membership, GED classes. This might also be, step up to leadership classes, things like that are being provided to individuals to kind of promote and get involved in the community. We're putting out on those numbers of individuals served in that area. I think the important thing to note here as we kind of close out the services is that look at these crosswalks is going to be very important to determining what type of data that you already have that can be put into these this piece of the new CSBG annual report on the CSBGS, and then what are some things maybe that you haven't been able to report out on previously that this will allow you to report on, or what are some things that could be tracked now they're already doing, and to go around to those different departments and talking with housing department, the input and services training, that thing, so that everyone's on the same page and knowing what information they need to be tracking. So when it comes time to report out on this, information can be easily gathered. We'll go ahead and position over to some examples.
Okay, so I get to talk a bit about some of the examples to be thinking about how you're going to connect or report on both the indicators and the services. The first example is the Action Agency operates a family development program. First piece of information that we know is that they help 50 people obtain and maintain employment for 6 months. And they also have helped 25 of them obtain a certificate or a diploma as part of the services they provide them. And all 50 of these people received multiple services. So 50 was the total number of people who received multiple services to obtain these outcomes. So we report these. Well, you report them in 2 different NPIs. You would report the number of unemployed adults who obtained employment. That would be up to a minimum, up to a living wage. And you might also be tracking the length of that employment. So you might report under those meaning employment for 90 or 180 days. And then you would also report those who obtained the credential or certificate that we mentioned under the education NPIs. So include these individuals under all the services that they received. They might have received both employment and education services, coaching, resume development, and so on. And they might have received employment in other domains or in that support service category that Courtney just talked about. This is about a community action agency that operates an in-home health program. This program assists seniors in maintaining an independent living situation. So where are those reported? Under health and social or behavioral development, it would include the number of seniors who maintain an independent living situation. And there again are a number of services that might be associated with this outcome. no assistance, chore help, personal care services, and the like. Is that participants might be involved in many different community action programs. So they might be housing programs, employment programs, nutrition programs, all of these programs, and they might obtain more than one outcome during the program year. So they might have reported, as we saw before, someone in employment and in education. How do you report this kind of success? This is the multiple domain section comes in. You're going to be able to say the number of people in this section who achieved multiple outcomes, whether they're in the same domain or whether they're in different domains. This, as Katie mentioned earlier, is the number of unduplicated people who achieved any of the outcomes that are in the end indicators, or who've achieved multiple outcomes or outcomes in multiple indicators. So this is where you would put that. Okay, and I'm turning over to someone to talk about all characteristics.
Thank you, and hello everyone. This is Lauren Cook with NASCAS. I'll be talking about the All Characteristics report in Module 4. The Characteristics report provides a full picture of the characteristics and demographics of all the people served by eligible entities. That's whether or not funded directly by CSBG or by other funding sources in the agency. It's very similar to the former Section G in the CSBGIS, and it really strengthened the CSBG annual report by demonstrating who is being served by CSBG eligible entities. So just as in the CSBGIS, unduplicated counts are expected. To obtain the unduplicated counts, the agency would need to have a system that can distinguish the characteristics for each individual and household. And while some individuals and households might be served by several programs within a reporting year and entered into multiple systems, they would still be reported in efficiency in the All Characteristics report, and we added some other components to kind of help with any difficulty in achieving that unduplicated count. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see the top portion of Module 4 in Section C. Before we go through some of these data elements, just want to reiterate what we've already heard about some of the other parts of this report. For example, in the NPIs or services, we don't expect that every agency will report on every NPI or every service. We also don't expect that every agency will be able to report every demographic data point for every person served within the agency. We know that sometimes it's not appropriate or it's not possible to obtain some of this information. So I want to make sure everyone understands that, but we have added many additional categories so that we can better picture of who we're serving through community action. So at the top of the slide, you see item A and B. Item A is the total unduplicated number of all individuals about whom one or more characteristics were obtained. And item B is the total unduplicated number of all households about whom one or more characteristics were obtained. Move to C, individual level characteristics. We first asked for gender, just as we do in the CSBGIS in Section G. Gender would be reported as either male, female, or other. We also have unknown. And you'll see on the slide some of the larger data points are highlighted in yellow. This is to show any data point or category that was added or revised from what you're reporting in Section G. So it'll make it a little bit clearer some of the updates that we've made. In the section on age, we have revised many of these age breakouts, but what most agencies collect or report on age based on date of birth that they've collected from their participants. For ethnicity and race, we ask for information both on ethnicity and race of program participants. These are really two separate categories that align with data collection by the U.S. Census Bureau. Go to the next slide. You'll see we have an education levels, and you'll note that this item now applies to ages 14 through 24, individuals over 24 years of age. So we kind of break out the youth education level and then adult education level. And we've added a category on graduate of other post-secondary school. Connected youth is a completely new category on the demographics report. This identifies the unduplicated number of youth who are working or in school and are enrolled in an agency program. And here the definition of youth is ages 14 through 24. Under health, you'd report the unduplicated number of program participants who have a disabling condition, as well as health insurance status for program participants. The items under health insurance sources, this is a new element of this report where you'll be able to report all of the health insurance sources participants are receiving. We know oftentimes they're receiving more than one. Military status, number 7, is again a new category that we've added based on a lot of feedback that we've received from the network. Here you report the unduplicated number of veterans and individuals in active military for any branch of the military. And then work status, another new category. We're collecting information on work status on all program participants 18 and older. And you can see that there are a lot of categories listed here so that you could hopefully capture this for any participant. We have the retired category, unemployed because they're not in the labor force, maybe they're disabled, also unemployed, and then the length of time that they've been unemployed, migrant, seasonal farm worker, and then whether they're employed full-time or part-time. To continue, the other portion of Section G is on household level characteristics. So we have household type, we have a couple new categories there, non-related adults with children and multi-generational households. Household size. This would be reported based on the composition of the household of the participant and able to report in one of the categories that are listed. 13 sources of household income. You would enter the sources of income received by all persons in the household. And that oftentimes there are many different sources of income, which is detailed below. We have into employment other income source, where you could report TANF, SSI, SSDI, and then some additional options listed. And then the next slide, we'll see number 15, the non-cash benefits. This all falls under household income, where we have SNAP, WIC, LIHEAP, and et cetera. On the left side of the report, we have the housing type. We've added one new category there, other permanent housing, if someone doesn't fall under owning, renting, or homeless. And then number 12, level of household income. We've only modified this by one data point, that's 250% and over. of the HHS guidelines. And I want to take a look at the points in this red box at the bottom of the screen. This is item E and item F. This would capture the number of individuals or households that may not have been included in the totals above. And this added to the report after receiving a lot of feedback and having a lot of discussion with the network. We really recognize that agencies have multiple data systems and not be able to immediately have an unduplicated count across several of those systems, or they have limitations in obtaining characteristic data that they would need to have the unduplicated count. You're not currently able to obtain unduplicated count of individuals or households due to data systems issues. You could include those individuals in item E and households in item F at the end of this report. Then you'll see on the right side, you would also be able to indicate the program in which individuals and households were enrolled. So let's go to the next slide and take a look specifically at E. So again, this is the number of individuals not included, and we talked a lot about maybe modifying this language that they may not have been included in the totals above due to the data collection system or integration barriers. That's the unduplicated number of individuals served within the program. Those individuals may not have been included in item A or item C, but you could report them under item E. And if we move to item F, this could report the number of households not included in the totals above, and again, it's due to data collection or system integration barriers. So it could list the unduplicated number of households served in those programs. May not have been included in item B or item D in the report. So we'll look at an example of reporting in item E and F. An individual who is served by an employment program, housing assistance, and LIHEAP. An unduplicated count is obtained from data entered for the employment and housing programs, but not able to get an unduplicated count from the LIHEAP data. So from the employment and housing programs could be entered in item A and item C in the report, and the LIHEAP data could be entered in item E. And now we're going to talk more about setting targets, and I believe Barbara will be covering this with us.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. We're learning a lot about the new annual report and the concept that we are asking for in the annual report. We're asking for targets to be set, and this is not a new concept. It's been part of the report, the S report, probably in a few of the items, and now moving forward, it's in all of the NPIs. And why I want this? Well, it demonstrates the agency's expectations of your capacity to deliver results and about your ability to be realistic about what you expect to achieve. These targets should be based on benchmarks, sub-goals, interim indicators that your agency has developed. And this is important is that in the GEPRA legislation, both the original in 1993 and the Modernization Act in 2010, there's reference to performance plans and performance goals. And these relate to planning for specific results. It refers to two kinds of targets, the number of people who are expected to be served and the number of people, of those that are served, who are expected to achieve an outcome. And these targets are defined in the evaluation phase, in the planning phase of the agency's ROMA implementation. Then they're assessed in the evaluation phase. it's important we know how many people we need to touch in order to obtain outcomes. That's really a learning process that comes through the work you do. You're identifying local needs, and you may know that there's a need for a certain kind of program, and in your planning, you're going to be saying, these are how many people that we need to recruit in order to have an expectation of results being achieved. What do we want to achieve? These expectations should be related to those national goals that I talked about in the new theory of change. Are thinking through the ROMA cycle as we talk about how we plan to reach the outcomes. That would be in our planning and our implementation phases. Find the services at the family and individual level, and the strategies at the community and agency level that are including in your planning report. So there separate services and strategies reporting in the annual report, and you just heard about the services piece in a recent discussion. The thinking piece will let the agency talk about how much change that we expect to see or that they expect to see, and how much, what the effect will be on these outcomes in our community. And what resources do we have to provide to reach those outcomes. This is what will identify the indicators of the outcomes expected, and this way we know what the quantify the outcome that the indicator is going to show us. How many will be served? That's our first target number. We need to know how many that we're going to include in our service, and then all those served, how many will achieve the outcome. And this is the target number. And the relationship between these two numbers is really the percent of success. And this is the foundation of all the data that we're going to use in trying to identify what works and for whom, which is really what we want to be able to analyze in the evaluation phase of the ROMA cycle. A relationship between outcomes and indicators. So the outcomes are the broad statements. Program participants pass the GED test. Parents demonstrate increased knowledge of good parenting skills. What to the targets, indicators, we would be saying 30 out of 50 or 60% will achieve a score of 85% or above on the GED exam within the program year. That's how we would state the indicator. Or 25 out of 50 or 50% achieved a passing score on the post-test of knowledge relating to the parenting follow-through. So their language is created by the local agency and should mirror what's found in the national performance indicators. NPIs are statements that have been identified as the most commonly used to measure the outcomes that are produced in that work. In this section, in the annual report, the agencies will enter the numbers served, a targeted number of who are expected to achieve an outcome, and finally, the actual number who will achieve the outcome. These numbers will automatically calculate 2%. One, that is the performance of the customers, and two, the ability of the agency to target. You entering the number that you expect to serve into the annual report, but that will be something that your agency will want to know and will be part of your planning. To define exactly what you mean by achieving the outcome, and it's up to the agency to identify, and might not have just one outcome. You have interim indicators to show progress in the middle of a program. For example, you have a GED program, you might want to know how many people are engaged at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end of the course to produce the number of, to project the number of people that will actually take the GED at the end of the course. Example of a logic model that helps you think through this targeting piece. What the need is, that individuals in the community have no high school diploma or GED. The service is the target. 100 students will enroll in a year-long test, and we believe in the fourth column that 60 out of those 100 will improve their basic skills. So that's our target for the number who will achieve 60, and then 40 will obtain their GED. So those are the areas where the numbers would come from the logic model. So how do we get this in the analysis of data? A big focus of ROMA Next Generation is really using the data that we have been collecting. We want to be able to analyze it and then use it. Targeting actually puts the results that you're measuring by the indicators into perspective. And it's the perspective of the agency's resources and capabilities. You can't be expected to do something that your agency doesn't have the capacity to do. So that's up to the local agency to determine. And then there will be a way to tie your national, state, and agency indicators together to both the time and the scale of the specific programs that you run. Performance if you don't define and measure it. And so you need to be thinking about data throughout the ROMA cycle. You're going to be collecting data in a way that assures its accuracy, completeness, and timeliness. Those are key elements to the collection of data that will be useful to you in your programs. We're going to organize the data into useful reports for your management team. You will enable your agencies will be enabled to more effectively connect the people and the communities with the services and strategies that are needed so that you can produce outcomes. You've heard throughout this presentation about connecting people and services and outcomes. And this is what you'll do with your data as you collect it and analyze it. Those things will allow you to take actions to improve or strengthen your outcomes. This is shows the ROMA cycle, and it shows that the data is collected throughout the ROMA cycle. It's not just the implementation phase or the reporting phase where we have data. There is data at all parts of the cycle, and you're identifying what will change, what needs to change in the assessment, how it will change in the planning, and then what does get implemented at the service strategy level, and then what was accomplished at the achievement of results level. And always coming back to evaluation, to analyze that data, to say what happened and how can we use it for effective changes in our agency so that we do more have. In tools, I'll get back over to NASCAS.
Thanks, Rob. Now we've heard about Module 4 and all of the different sections. We want to spend a little time talking about the resources and tools that we have been developing and are available now, as well as tools that will be becoming available in the coming months. The first one is a new CSBG annual report numbering scheme. This was developed based on questions and feedback and suggestions that we'd received from the network. In the CSBG annual report, not every data point had its own number. So we spent a lot of time thinking out what kind of numbering system would work, and we have developed that and published the new numbering system in an Excel document on the NASCAS website. So if you take a look at the new numbering, you'll see how we will be updating all of the other tools and documents that are available now. So please take a look at that new numbering system if you haven't already. The other tool we'll talk about is the annotated CSBG annual report. And Katie had referenced this when she was reviewing the NPIs. So this is a really helpful tool as you're going through the annual report to see what indicators or other data points are kind of pulled from the CSBGIS and what data points are new in the annual report. So I encourage you to take a look at that one as well. We have a variety of crosswalks that are available. The one in kind of the back on this screen is the high-level crosswalk. This is the one we've been looking at as we go through every section in Module 4. But if you go to our website, you can download the full high-level crosswalk for the whole annual report, and you can see how sections in the annual report align with sections and NPIs of the CSBGIS survey. We have crosswalks available between the annual report, the IS survey, national standards, and the ROMA principles. And then another crosswalk we have is one between the CSBGIS NPIs and the CSBG annual report NPIs and other data points. So if you're trying to kind of identify the low-hanging fruit in terms of NPIs you have been reporting on for the CSBGIS and which ones you could pretty quickly be able to report on in the annual report, this would be the tool for you. And we will show you where you can find these on our website. We have some reorganizing to help you find the tools that you need faster and more easily. We have a CSBG annual report page on our website where we have all of these tools available, and you can see it's on the side of the screen where that yellow arrow is pointing. If we go to the next slide, you can see that we have right now a list of all of those tools that are available. All of the crosswalks are there, some sample presentations that we've presented in the past, as well as Excel forms for all of the modules, timelines if you're needing more information about when you're going to start collecting this information. You can find this all on our website. We have a page specifically on ROMA Next Generation, so if you're wanting to look at the theory of change, you could find that on our website here. Let's talk about what tools and resources will be coming. NASCAS is always very thankful to hear feedback and suggestions from the network on what you need and what we can develop to help you in this implementation process. Some of the ones that we are working on or will be working on, the crosswalk between LIHEAP, Head Start, WEWA, and weatherization. We have our webinar series that's happening right now. And the instructions manuals and lexicon. We know that these are very important tools to assist everyone at every level in implementing this report. So we do have draft instruction manuals for modules 2, 3, and 4 that we have reviewed with some of the data task force to get their feedback on where we need to have more detail or clearer instruction. We've been working internally based on questions that we've received from the network to kind of edit these manuals. So we're taking a lot of time to make sure they're as comprehensive and helpful as possible. But they should be coming out this summer. A place where you can find all of these tools and more is the CSBG Training and Technical Assistance Resource Center. This is a site that's managed by the Community Action Partnership and NASCAS. For both posting tools and resources so that you can find them all in one resource bank. I encourage you to go to the website if you haven't already. There are links from the NASCAS website and the Community Action Partnership's website to get to this TNTA center. If you have questions after the webinar, you can always email Katie Kajowski, myself, or Jackie Orr here at NASCAS, or any of our other national partners. We all work closely when we receive questions to make sure we give you the best answer possible. And we're also at the Q&A portion of our webinar today. We have received some questions throughout the chat, and we have a little time left to go through a few of them. So I'm going to start with a question that we received on Section A, the NPIs. The question is, can we clarify again about the indicator on multiple domains and where is this reported? And I'm wondering, Katie, can you answer that question?
Yes, thank you, Lauren. So the indicator on outcomes across multiple domains is located in the last section of Module 4 of Section A. Across multiple domains reports the unduplicated count of people who have received one or more outcomes in any of the domains. So allocated individuals can be reported here if they've achieved one outcome, and also be reported here if they've achieved a number of outcomes in any one or more of the domains. This is not a compilation of all outcomes. It's not adding up every outcome that occurred or was reported across the domains, but it's an indicator that reports on an unduplicated count of outcomes. The indicator attempts to report the number of lives changed. That's what we're attempting to get at with having this in the report.
Okay, and we had a follow-up question about this indicator. Do the individuals counted in the across multiple domains indicator all get counted within the other domains in Section A?
Question, and yes, these outcomes will be reported in the indicators on all the other domains in Section A. So if they obtain a job, they'll be reported in the employment domains, and they'll be reported here, as your systems allow, in outcomes across multiple domains.
Thank you, Dee. Our next question is, if an agency realizes family and individual outcomes through collaborative work that documented either individually or through the collaboration, can they be counted under Module 4, and what might be some of the limitations? Barbara, can you answer that question for us?
Yes, Lauren. Yes, absolutely, you can count those outcomes. The limitation would be based on your involvement with the outcome. We'd expect that you are able to document your part in the achievement of the outcome in some way, and that you have some record or reporting system for identifying that you've had a significant portion of the input. Sometimes you might be making a referral and then following up to make sure that the referral was met, and those are the kinds of services that often happen in collaboratives. And yes, you should be counting those in your own outcome area.
Thank you, Barbara. Next question is about the definition of use in this report. Kay, can you answer that one?
Certainly. Definition of use has changed from the CSBG to the new annual report. It's defined in this annual report as ages 14 through 24. However, there is one indicator in Module 4, which is in the 5th domain, that asks for the number of individuals with no recidivating event for 6 months. And in that particular indicator, we're requesting information on youth who are only 14 through 17.
Okay. And we have another question related to the definition of living wage. And we asked, what is the definition of living wage for this report?
That question. There is no national definition of a living wage because so much depends on the local cost of living. So agencies may determine their own definition of living wage. They may work with their state. Maybe there's some local type of definition amongst agencies in a similar area. So ultimately, agencies may come up with their own definition. We'll be providing tools that are out there for you to reference and use. We're providing those in the instruction manual when we release it.
Thank you. And our last question is about reporting on the NPIs. This is in the first column in reporting on the NPIs. It asks for the number of participants served. How is this different than reporting the target? And Barbara, you speak to that one?
Yes, we're targeting the target number is the number of outcomes that are expected to be achieved. That's the target number to be reported in the annual report. The number of people served means all of the people who were served, the actual number of people who were served, regardless of whether they achieved an outcome or not. And so, as I said before, the agency will be thinking about its targets for the number served, but those will not be entered into the annual report.
Okay. Thank you, Brooke. I think we're to the end of our Q&A period. If we can go to the next slide. We are wrapping up our Understanding Module 4 individual and family level webinar series with the webinar today, but we have an additional 3-part series on Understanding Module 3, community level. So just like for Module 4, we've broken this out by time zone. They are going to be pretty much the same presentation for each of those 3 dates and times, but we've done this to make it easier for you to attend and have a little bit of a smaller group on each of the webinars so we can answer more of your questions. If you haven't done so already, please register for one of the Module 3 webinars. We're looking forward to talking about community level work. Just a reminder, all of these webinars are recorded and posted to NASCAS website, as well as the PowerPoint slides from the webinar. So you can have all of that from our website. If we didn't answer one of your questions today, we will be compiling it into an frequently asked questions document that will be available on our website as well. Thank you so much for being on the webinar today with us. NASCAS thanks all of our national partners for being a part of this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you soon on one of the upcoming webinars. So thank you and have a great day.